Should we go into Imagine That
I
thing?
think we should go right into
Okay.
it.
All right. It's time for Imagine That presented by Xfinity. Do you want me to go with mine too? Because mine's similar. You want to go first?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll go, and then we can kind of meld them
Okay.
together. But
Okay.
it's the 10-2 thing that you talked about exactly. Like, I see that issue coming. There are going to be many teams that are sitting there at 10-2. So imagine that Oregon, USC, Miami, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Alabama, Vanderbilt all finished 10-2, and then you have the Texas at 9-3 also sitting right there. This is a scenario where I think people riot, because we just talked about the Texas Vanderbilt thing. So imagine if Vanderbilt actually gets in as a 10-2, which I don't think they would in this scenario, but you're Texas and you're like, we beat them. We beat that team and we handled them. They had a good fourth quarter. We handled that team. Like, people would be going insane. Oklahoma in there, Texas, we handled them. We beat Oklahoma. Then you're Oregon. You're sitting there. You're at 10-2. I can't help what my schedule is. Like, sorry, I can't help it. But you don't have any good wins. They're going to feel a way about that. Like, there are so many teams that if they got left out in that scenario, is USC too far back right now that their win over Oregon, if it's a close win, kind of sloppy, people might try to say like, oh, those teams are equal. What do you do about that? Like, there are so many scenarios that come into play. We talked about the Miami Notre Dame thing. It's wild. I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. Like, if you're on the outside looking in as a 10-2, or specifically for Texas as a 9-3, even though I just made their case, like, you're not going to see tears out of me. There are too many damn teams getting in this thing in the first place. But I think that there is a scenario legitimately where you have fan bases that are going to try to storm the CFP meeting room because their team got left out with a solid resume that in most years you feel like they're automatically in.
Well, and I will say Texas fans will be a lot closer to Dallas to get there, to storm the CFP meeting room and the Gaylord Texan that they do all this in. My Imagine That is very similar. So I think basically what our Imagine That's this week are like the riot theory.
Yes.
What will cause people to riot? What will cause people to lose trust in the CFP and its selection committee the most? And it is about ignoring on the field results. So your example was about ignoring on the field results. I'm saying Miami is going to continue to win, and they're going to win big. They're going to get their style points. They're going to pass the eye test, and they're going to have a compelling at-large case. That is the nightmare scenario here if you're on the selection committee. That is what makes your decision very, very difficult. Do you end up relying on a 3-point game on Labor Day weekend to decide, like, let's say the last spot in the bracket or the second to last spot or whatever it ends up being? Because Miami's best case is as an at-large team.
Yes.
It's complicated for them to get to the ACC championship game. They need a lot of help. So that's what we're talking about here. At-large teams. Notre Dame's always an at-large team. You still got Alabama in the mix. Oregon could lose and maybe be in the mix. But there's a lot of people who already think that Miami and Notre Dame should be directly compared to each other. That the idea that Notre Dame is getting more credit for good losses, including a loss to Miami, than Miami's getting credit for beating them as a good win. Right. That is a problem. That creates a lack of trust.
Yes.
There's already the lack of transparency when we're talking about the committee. But people are going to continue to get very, very angry about this if you are constantly deciding that the results on the field, even if they were 2.5 months ago, don't come into play when you're actually evaluating teams that are near each other in the rankings that should be compared to each other. It's the same thing you're talking about, Joshua.
Yes.
If you're arbitrarily behind a bunch of teams that you beat because you're getting penalized for a loss that you went out and scheduled and you went out and played in Columbus, people are going to riot. People are going to be so mad about the messages that this sends about A, on the field results in general, but B, non-conference scheduling. These are the games we want. We want Notre Dame, Miami. We want Texas, Ohio State. So we don't want the selection committee to incentivize teams never to play those games again.
I'm with you on that. Like, I think it sends a wild message. I think the other message that's in here too is Miami, and you can say whatever you want about the losses that they had in conference. They're clearly the best team in the ACC, and there's going to be another team that would be in there and they could get left out. Like, the idea that that's the pathway, and like we can't just rank them 1 through 12 and take the teams, which has always been a sticking point for me. Like, I think that's going to become a bigger conversation, is like, well, this other team who clearly nobody thinks is as good as Miami gets in because they did what they needed to do in conference. And like, that's a Miami problem, right? Like, I'm not making an excuse for them, but it's also the idea of like, are we really trying to get the best teams? Like, part of this should be like, there should be a break glass in case of emergency, where this Miami situation happens, where it's like, oh, this is a top 10 football team. Like, we're just going to put them in because they're the best team in the ACC, regardless of who wins the conference. That would make me feel better about things.
I wish the ACC could just do that. Be like, hey, we're determining, here's our AQ. Here's our champ.
I mean, the Big Ten kind of did it in 2020 when they changed the rules for the conference
allow
championship.
Ohio State to play. Yeah.
Why not?
That was, imagine that presented by Xfinity